For Ash, high school was a sensory gauntlet, a world to be shielded from. Yet, a hidden genius thrived in the library's forgotten corners, building a secret world of interconnected ideas. When chaos struck, Ash's unique mind, seeing profound patterns where others saw only pandemonium, became the unlikely key to restoring order and finding their voice. Ash existed in the margins, a carefully curated ghost in the cacophony of North Creek High. The school was a universe of sensory overload. The percussive slam of lockers, the thunder of feet in the hallways, the suffocating cloud of competing colognes and body sprays. For Ash, a 17-year-old who felt everything too intensely, it was a daily gauntlet. Their noise-canceling headphones were not a fashion statement but a shield. Their perpetually hunched posture not a sign of shyness but a desperate attempt to shrink their own surface area, to offer less of themselves for the world to strike. They navigated the crowded corridors like a particle physicist, tracking an electron's path, calculating vectors of avoidance to minimize collision and contact. But every day at precisely 3:15 p.m., the storm inside them would find its eye. While the rest of the student body exploded outwards towards sports fields, part-time jobs, and social congregations, Ash would make a quiet, deliberate retreat. Their destination was the library's most neglected appendage, the donation corner. It was a dusty, poorly lit alcove, a purgatory for the printed word where abandoned paperbacks with cracked spines, obsolete science texts from the 1980s, and forlorn copies of forgotten bestsellers went to die. To everyone else, it was a pile of junk, an administrative headache. To Ash, it was a sanctuary. For the past 4 months, this corner had become their silent, sacred work. They moved with a methodical grace, a quiet reverence for the objects others had discarded. They weren't just tidying up. They were performing a kind of literary archaeology, excavating meaning from the rubble. Ash was building a new world from the ruins of the old, governed by a classification system that existed only in their mind. It was a logic that transcended the sterile confines of Dewey Decimal or the brute force of alphabetical order. Ash's system was one of conceptual resonance. Here, a weathered copy of a book on the migratory patterns of monarch butterflies, its pages yellowed and smelling of vanilla, was not shelved with other biology texts. Instead, Ash had placed it tenderly next to a slim, unassuming volume of poetry by a post-war immigrant chronicling a displaced family's search for belonging. A small, hand-drawn tag, a delicate spiral that evoked both a galaxy and a fingerprint, connected them. The theme, written in tiny, precise script, the long journey home. A dense chemistry textbook, detailing the rigid, perfect beauty of crystalline structures, was paired with a tattered paperback of a philosophical treatise on the architecture of social order. Their shared tag was a geometric pattern of interlocking squares, inherent patterns. This was Ash's true language, their eloquent, silent way of forging connections in a world that felt relentlessly disconnected. It was a secret map of human thought, a testament to a mind that saw a hidden, beautiful symmetry where everyone else only saw chaos. Mr. Liang, a biology teacher with the patient eyes of a man who spent his weekends cataloging rare mosses, was the first to notice the quiet miracle unfolding in the library's forgotten corner. He was a man of systems, of taxonomies, of finding the grand, elegant order in the seemingly chaotic sprawl of nature. At 45, he dedicated his life to observing the minute details others overlooked, believing that the entire story of an ecosystem could be read in the veins of a single leaf. Initially, he'd assumed the gradual tidying was the work of Miss Finch, the perpetually flustered librarian. But one afternoon, seeking a quiet place to read, he wandered closer. He saw not just tidiness, but a profound and peculiar logic. He picked up a book on ancient naval navigation techniques and found it sitting beside a modern manual on coding complex algorithms. The tag connecting them was a simple, elegant wave intersecting a straight line, guiding through the unseen. He was intrigued. This was not the work of a librarian clearing a backlog. This was the work of a curator, a philosopher. He began to observe, not with the intent to interfere, but with the pure, unadulterated curiosity of a scientist who has stumbled upon a new species. For 2 weeks, he made quiet pilgrimages to the corner. He never spoke to the silent figure with the oversized headphones who worked with such intense focus. He simply watched the intellectual ecosystem grow and evolve. He saw a 1970s automotive repair manual, its cover greasy with the ghosts of old fingerprints, placed next to a pristine copy of Shakespeare's The Tempest. Their shared tag, a stunningly intricate drawing of a gear entwined with a feather, was accompanied by the almost microscopic script, "Restoring a Broken World." A jolt went through him. It was breathtaking. This wasn't just clever, it was a form of intellectual poetry. Mr. Liang saw beyond the quiet, withdrawn student that the rest of the school ignored. He saw a mind capable of weaving disparate threads of human knowledge into a single, cohesive tapestry. He wasn't watching a student cleaning up books. He was witnessing a genius building a cathedral of thought, all in the dusty silence of a forgotten room. And he knew, with a certainty that settled deep in his bones, that a mind like this didn't belong in the shadows. The catalyst for change came not as a gentle nudge, but as a deluge. Over a long, rain-soaked weekend, an ancient copper pipe embedded in the ceiling above the nonfiction section finally surrendered to decades of corrosion. It burst, unleashing a slow, steady cascade that warped shelves, pulped encyclopedias, and left a tide mark of brown water halfway up the American history aisle. The emergency repair crew that stormed in on Monday morning did more harm than good, their heavy boots and hurried movements turning a localized disaster into a library-wide catastrophe. In the aftermath, North Creek High's library was a shipwreck. Books that had been hastily moved were now hopelessly jumbled. Entire sections had been contaminated with volumes from other genres, and the digital catalog was a laughable fiction against the reality on the shelves. It was no longer a place of learning. It was a monument to chaos. Miss Finch, the librarian, a woman who found comfort in the rigid certainty of the Dewey Decimal System, was visibly unraveling. She wandered the aisles with a haunted look, her valiant but futile efforts to reimpose order swallowed daily by the sheer scale of the mess. The issue inevitably bubbled up to a tense faculty meeting. The principal, Mr. Davidson, a man who valued order and public image above all else, described the situation as a catastrophic failure of our core academic resources. He spoke of calls from disgruntled parents and the disruption to student research projects. As Mr. Liang listened to the administrative hand-wringing and the litany of complaints, his mind wasn't on the burst pipe or the budget for restoration. It was on a small, hand-drawn tag depicting a gear entwined with a feather. He saw the silent, focused form of Ash, and an idea, not just an idea but a conviction, began to crystallize in his mind. After the meeting, he bypassed the faculty lounge and its chorus of commiseration, walking with purpose straight to the library. He found Ash in their usual corner, which had miraculously escaped the worst of the flood. They were meticulously working on a book that had suffered some water damage, carefully separating the stiff, damp pages of a poetry anthology with slips of wax paper. Mr. Liang approached not as a teacher descending upon a student, but as one professional seeking the expertise of another. He waited until Ash looked up, their eyes wide with the surprise of being directly addressed in their sanctuary. "I've been observing your work here for several weeks, Ash," Mr. Liang began, his voice low and steady, compelling Ash to slide their headphones down around their neck. The ambient noise of the library rushed in, making them flinch. "The way you connect ideas, the system you've built, it's not just organization. It's a form of genius." He let that word hang in the air, a word Ash had never associated with themselves. "We have a problem," he continued, gesturing towards the chaotic main floor. "A big, messy, complicated problem that most people here think is about plumbing and manual labor. They're wrong. It's a problem of logic. He looked directly into Ash's eyes, his gaze unwavering. I would like to formally invite you to lead the solution. I've secured a budget to hire you as the official student consultant for the library reorganization project. He saw the flicker of panic in Ash's expression and pressed on, his voice filled with sincere urgency. I'm not asking you to be a volunteer helper, Ash. I'm asking to hire your brain. We don't just need your help, we need your system. The offer landed like a physical blow. For a moment, Ash forgot how to breathe. The main floor of the library, visible from their sheltered corner, was the epicenter of everything they spent their life avoiding. It was a vast, open prairie of a room, with harsh fluorescent lighting that hummed at a frequency that scraped their nerves raw. It was a place of unpredictable movement, of loud conversations, of accidental jostling. It was the storm. Their first instinct was pure, unadulterated flight. Every nerve ending screamed at them to bolt, to retreat back into the comfortable anonymity of the hallways and disappear. The invitation was a spotlight, and Ash had spent their entire existence perfecting the art of living in the shadows. The very thought of being at the center of a school-wide project, of being visible, of being perceived, sent a wave of nausea through them. But beneath the panic, another feeling was stirring, a fragile, unfamiliar warmth. I need your mind. We need your system. No one had ever said anything like that to them before. People saw their silence, their tics, their strangeness. They saw a problem to be managed or, more often, a void to be ignored. Mr. Liang had looked past all of that and seen the one part of them that felt true and real, the intricate, beautiful order they built from chaos. The validation was so profound, so intensely desired, it was almost as terrifying as the fear. Mr. Liang saw the war playing out across their face, the tension in their jaw, the slight tremor in their hands. He didn't push. He didn't fill the silence with platitudes. Instead, he recognized the battlefield and offered a truce. "We can set the terms," he said gently. "You can work after hours, evenings, weekends. The library will be empty, silent. It will be your space completely. I will be the firewall. I'll handle Mr. Davidson, the staff, any questions. You won't have to talk to anyone but me." That single act of profound understanding was the tipping point. He wasn't just offering a job. He was offering a shield. He saw not only their talent but their struggle and had already built a bridge across it. The fear was still there, a cold knot in their stomach, but the warmth of being truly seen, truly understood was stronger. Ash took a shaky breath, the first in what felt like minutes. They looked at the chaos of the library, then back at the quiet, steady kindness in Mr. Liang's eyes. In a voice barely above a whisper, they said, "Okay." For the next 6 weeks, the North Creek High Library became Ash's kingdom. As promised, Mr. Liang acted as both guardian and gatekeeper. He procured a key for Ash, rerouted all inquiries through his office, and ensured that their workspace was a sanctuary, undisturbed and silent. After the 3:30 p.m. bell faded, a profound quiet would settle over the cavernous room, and in that quiet, Ash came alive. The library wasn't a room to them. It was a vast, three-dimensional brain, and they were the neurosurgeon, carefully remapping its tangled pathways. They began not by shelving but by mapping. On huge sheets of paper spread across the main tables, Ash drew their conceptual web. It was a symphony of connections. The history section was no longer a static timeline of events. It became a dynamic network. Books on the French Revolution were linked via a spark of rebellion thread to texts on the physics of chain reactions, biographies of iconoclastic artists like Picasso, and even novels about teenage runaways. A book on the architectural principles of the Pantheon, with its central oculus, was conceptually paired with a biology text on photosynthesis and a collection of essays on spiritual enlightenment, their shared theme, drawing power from a single source. Slowly, a few curious teachers and students who stayed late began to notice the transformation. They'd wander in and find themselves captivated by the strange, new adjacencies. The captain of the debate team found a book on military strategy placed next to one on the flocking behavior of starlings, and for the first time, understood strategy not as a set of rules, but as an emergent, organic phenomenon. Word began to spread, hushed and reverent, about the mystery curator who was turning the library into a work of art. When the project was complete, the result was staggering. The library was not just organized, it was intelligent, it was intuitive. Principal Davidson, though he didn't understand the system, understood the results. He declared the project a resounding success, and, in a fit of administrative pride, decided to honor the student responsible at the next all-school assembly. The day of the assembly, the gymnasium felt like a pressure cooker. The lights were blinding, the collective hum of 1,000 students a physical force. Ash stood stiffly at the side of the stage, their hands clenched, their breathing shallow. Mr. Liang stood a step behind them, a silent, solid presence. When Principal Davidson boomed into the microphone, his voice echoed unnaturally. And now, I'd like to bring up the brilliant young woman responsible for this incredible achievement. Please give a round of applause for Ashley Jensen. The name, their birth name, and the wrong pronoun landed with a familiar, sharp sting. It was the name on the school records, the label that never fit, the constant, low-grade pain of being fundamentally misidentified. For a second, Ash felt the old impulse to shrink, to vanish. But then they glanced at the rows of students, and they thought of the library, their library, a space they had redefined on their own terms. They thought of the gear and the feather. Bolstered by the memory of their own creation, they took a deep breath. Mr. Liang gave a small, almost imperceptible nod of encouragement. Ash walked to the podium, adjusted the microphone, and looked out at the sea of faces. Their voice, though quiet, was amplified into every corner of the vast room, clear and unwavering. "Thank you, Principal Davidson," they began. "My name is Ash, and my pronouns are they, them." A beat of silence fell over the gymnasium. It was a heavy, profound quiet, the kind that can curdle into hostility in a heartbeat. Ash's heart hammered against their ribs, a frantic drumbeat in the sudden void. This was it, the moment of judgment. They braced for the snickers, the whispers, the collective confusion that had followed them their whole life. The air grew thick with unspoken questions. Then from the front row, a single, sharp sound cut through the tension. It was Maya, a girl from the art department known for her vibrant murals and no-nonsense attitude. She had been one of the first to discover the library's new logic, spending hours tracing Ash's connections. She began to clap, not politely, but with genuine, enthusiastic force. Her applause was a stone tossed into a still pond. A few of her friends joined in, then a teacher, then a pocket of students from the debate team. Within seconds, the sound grew from a ripple to a wave, then a tidal surge. The applause washed over Ash, a current of warmth and acceptance that felt more real than anything they had ever experienced. It wasn't pitying. It wasn't confused. It was respect. The students were applauding not a label or a pronoun, but the mind that had given them back their library better than it had ever been. Emboldened, Ash leaned back towards the microphone. "My system," they said, their voice gaining strength, "is about finding the hidden connections. For example, I put a book about how beehives work next to a book about building effective city governments." A murmur of understanding, of appreciation, rippled through the crowd. A few students exchanged looks of dawning comprehension. Both are about how a million tiny, individual efforts can create a single, functioning, beautiful whole. A fresh wave of applause erupted, louder this time, punctuated by appreciative whoops from the back of the gym. In that moment, Ash felt a fundamental shift in the atmosphere around them. They were no longer the weird, quiet kid who sat alone at lunch. They were Ash, the architect of the new library. They were the person with the most organized brain in school, a title that had been circulating in the hallways for the past week. They were a genius. The applause continued, a steady, rolling thunder of affirmation. For the first time in their life, Ash stood in the center of a crowd and did not feel crushed by it. They felt held. They looked to the side of the stage and met Mr. Liang's eyes. He wasn't clapping. He was just watching them, his face filled with a quiet, profound pride that was more validating than the entire gymnasium's ovation. Ash had not just organized a library, they had found their place in the world. A week later, the new library was humming with a different kind of energy. It was no longer just a place for silent study, but a hub of quiet discovery. Students moved through the aisles with a new curiosity, often stopping to puzzle over and discuss Ash's unconventional pairings. The space felt alive, a testament to the interconnectedness of knowledge. Ash sat at a table in the center of the room, a place they would have considered hostile territory just a few months ago. Their headphones were on, but the music was playing at a low volume, a comfortable buffer rather than a desperate shield. They were sketching out a new conceptual map, just for fun, linking musical theory to the mathematics of wave physics. A shadow fell over their notebook. Ash looked up to see one of the stars of the football team, a massive defensive lineman named Kevin, shifting his weight awkwardly from foot to foot. "Hey," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. "Sorry to bother you." Ash slid their headphones off. The old panic, the instinct to retreat, was a faint echo now, easily ignored. "It's okay," they said. I was looking for a book on offensive line strategies," Kevin said, holding up a well-known coaching manual. "And the catalog said to look here, but it's next to this." He pointed to the book beside it on the shelf, a slim volume on the social structure of ant colonies. "I was just wondering." "Why?" For the first time, Ash didn't have to rehearse a conversation in their head. The logic was their own, the language fluent. "Because both are about collective intelligence," Ash explained calmly. "An offensive line isn't 5 separate guys. It has to work as a single organism to protect one point. Just like an ant colony works together to protect the queen. The principles of shared sacrifice and communication are the same." Kevin stared at the two books, then back at Ash, a look of genuine wonder on his face. "Whoa," he breathed. "I never would have thought of that. That's really smart," he grinned. "Thanks." From his office, Mr. Liang watched the exchange. He saw the easy smile Ash gave Kevin as the football player walked away, a new understanding dawning in his eyes. The library project had given Ash more than just a purpose and a paycheck. Their unique, brilliant talent, once a secret source of comfort in a hostile world, had become the very thing that connected them to it. It hadn't just earned them respect. It had built them a bridge, designed to their own specifications, leading out of their isolation. Ash was no longer an island, but the heart of a new and vibrant ecosystem.